No. All right, we're recording now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SIG Network call, September 2nd, 2021. My name is Tim. I am leading the meeting today. For the record, we are all under the auspices of the Kubernetes best behavior policies, so don't be jerks. It will be recorded and posted on YouTube with your name. So that said, we have a pretty thin agenda today, and we start with triage. Okay, we're done with triage. There's nothing new to triage today. I went through it, and other people went through it this morning or this afternoon, so thank you. Nothing new to discuss in that queue. We have a couple of items on the agenda. The first thing is the KEP project board review, which I will go ahead and present. Let me pick the right window. Can I pick a window in a different screen? That's interesting. Let me try that. One moment, please. Where are we now? This one's called SIG Network KEPs. Let's find that window. There we are. Can everybody see that? It's pretty wide. I'll make it narrower. Everybody's got that? Yes? All right. So in terms of calendar, the KEP freeze for 1.23 is next Thursday, end of day, I guess, the 9th of September. So we have 1 week to get PRs for KEPs merged. If you have a KEP that hasn't gone through production readiness review, your deadline is today, and you need to make sure your PRR is updated and assigned so that the PRR reviewers have this intervening week to poke at them. And the final freeze will be next week. So I know some people have already sent me PRs today and in the last couple of days. The first thing, let's just run through what's on the board, and then we can talk about the spreadsheet. So I don't think we have anything in here that we're making progress on in the evaluated not committed column. Things that actually, let's start at the other end. Those are GA merged. Let's talk about betas. So IPv4, IPv6 dual stack. I believe Cal is not here today, and Burjade is out. So the goal is to move this to GA in 23. That Cal is working on a PR now. He's blocked behind my service refactoring PR, but the goal is to move that in. If anybody has concerns about it, speak now. Andrew, terminating endpoints, is this going to go for 23?
Yeah, so this KEP is just the endpoint slice condition update and not the key-proxy logic. So I think API change alone, I'm hoping to get that to GA in 123.
Okay. Are you going to update is that one of the KEPs you sent me today?
Yeah, and the PRR, okay. I don't think anything changes from beta. We answered all the questions when we went beta. So I think it's just like the milestone update for this one.
Okay. We'll move things in the dashboard here when the PR to change the gate merges instead of when the KEP merges. Okay. Network policy port ranges, Ricardo. Yay or nay? Are you here?
Yeah, sorry, I've missed the window.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, so no. I've sent to you, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I've sent to you, mostly it's stuck in that graduation criteria. I've sent it in Slack, and I didn't get any PR reviewer. Remember that one?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So it's in my Slack.
Yeah, I can send you again.
Yeah, sorry, it's been a very busy couple of weeks. I will see what we can do. I would love to move this forward. Any other objections besides machinery?
We need 4 CNI supporting. We just have 3 to GA.
Which 4 did we target?
Which what? Sorry, Tim.
Which 4 were we hoping to get?
We need at least Cilium or OpenShift to support.
Okay.
We've got KubeRouter, Calico, and Antria. Okay.
And do we have contacts with either of OpenShift? I know one of the Dans is here, or with Cilium. Have they like acknowledged it?
Yeah. So Cilium folks, they told me that they will need to change the data path of Cilium. They need to make some changes into how eBPF works. So they don't think it's gonna be easy. And OpenShift, I talked with Dan Winship in past, and he told me that Dan can say, but I guess it's a policy from OpenShift just using graduated features.
No, I don't think I said that. I mean, it's difficult to implement in OVS, or well, it's inefficient to implement in OVS. And as far as I know, like this feature went through despite only ever having one user requesting it. And so it doesn't seem that urgent.
Should we hold it then? I'm asking you, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of against this kept from the beginning.
Okay.
I think we can hold it without problem to V1 24 as it's already beta and people is using in Calico. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll have to maybe go back and look at it again from an implementation point of view. If it's really difficult for 2 of the major implementations, we should maybe talk about why and what we can do about that. Okay. So
okay. I will ping Cilium folks again anyway.
Okay. Okay. We won't push on it for now. Namespace scoped parameters. I saw the PR for that already. Disable node ports for type load balancer. That's the allocate node load balancer node ports. Andrew, your name's on it. Is that still you?
Yes, yeah, that's one of the keps I had open too. I think this is just a feature gate switch. We added testing and all that when we went beta.
Yep. Okay. And load balancer class.
Yeah, same thing for that one. I think it's just a gate switch.
Awesome. So our beta column will be almost empty, hopefully. That sounds great. All right, who's going to move from alpha to beta? Andrew, termination for ETP?
Yeah, so this is the one that I'm having the most trouble with, specifically around like testing, right? If we want to promote this to beta, we're going to want some EDB tests. And Tony and I have talked about it a bit, but like we need an EDB test that does a rolling upgrade behind a load balancer that validates that we're not dropping traffic against terminating pods. And I don't know how feasible that is.
I had a branch with something to work on this, but you want to graduate this in this release?
I think it'd be good because I know this is a issue that's been reported by a lot of people on multiple cloud providers, and it comes up a lot. So I think it would be good. I know that we've also had conversations about whether there needs to be a terminating fallback mechanism for internal traffic as well, which I don't like. For internal traffic, I don't think it's that urgent, just because you're more likely to have some ready endpoint across like the global set of all cluster-wide endpoints, whereas with like the local case, it's more likely where a single node wouldn't. So maybe. Yeah.
What's the difference with the tracking termination endpoints?
So tracking terminating endpoints is just the endpoint slice API update to track the terminating condition for a pod. So like that enables, I don't know, like maybe ingress controllers might want to use it, or other consumers of the API might find it useful. But it's separate from the way. So the Great Swell termination cap is just kube proxy consuming the terminating condition and then falling back appropriately.
So one is tied to the other.
Yeah, this one is dependent on 1672 tracking terminating endpoints. But like
Okay.
tracking terminating endpoints is already beta and is probably going to go GA ahead of the key property changes. So I'm not too worried about that.
So I have something to do the readable test for testing this. I need just to recover the branch. But I mean, if we can, the thing is, if I can do the test, we can demonstrate and we can go to beta. So how risky is to say that we are going to try?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can get agreement that we're going to try beta. I'm just kind of saying testing might be a problem. But yeah, let's work together on that and see if we can get some good tests for it.
So we can say we're going to try and put it in for tracking, and if we don't make it, we don't make it.
Yeah,
This is not the code freeze, right? The code freeze is a month and a half away or something.
Right, and it's easy to measure. If we have a test that is readable, we meet the requirement.
All right. Expanded DNS configuration.
Well, this is funny. I don't think that. Yeah, because I mean that's a legit bug. It's the thing with glibc with I don't know which version only admit 6 domains, and since I don't know that version, you can allow a lot of them. So the guy did a lot of job and the kept is good and all the code and all the tests, but once you put it to work, all the container runtimes have a limitation to run only 6. So it doesn't work neither with cryo or containerd. So now it's fixed in cryo and containerd, and they need to port to their stable releases. So the good thing here is that we added a feature gate that saved us from breaking all the clusters.
Okay, so we're going to leave it in alpha until we get a couple of runtime implementations.
I asked him to add us criteria to have container runtimes that work with the new expanded DNS. So, but
Seems
the thing is, I don't know how is the cryo and containerd policy, because we cannot allow clusters with containerd policies with containerd that doesn't allow expanded DNS to run with this. It breaks.
It breaks. How does it break? Is it crash or is it just reject?
It's in the issue. I don't remember. I think that it registers to create the pod or something like that.
I mean, either way, it's not pleasant because it'll fail way down at the node instead of at the API. Okay, well, it sounds like we're not pushing this one forward this cycle then.
It's well documented, and I think that he submitted a PR to clarify.
Okay. Mixed protocol load balancers. This one, as far as I know, hasn't made any progress.
Yeah, the person that submitted it sent a message saying, a comment saying that he wasn't able to work on that. I think that Andy commented. I was checking at this cap the other day, and the problem is that we requested some support in cloud providers, and as far as I know, nobody in the cloud provider area. But
so I know that Chef Taco or Walter is working on a cap for the Cloud Controller Manager to more easily spin up validating admission webhooks. And the reason why it's relevant for this is that then we can create like an interface for cloud providers to say what combination of ports are valid for a service type load balancer, which would then make removing the mixed protocol validation more safer and easier.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want to overlap those two things, or if we want to.
Until we have some implementations of this, like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to move forward. And I know how to do the Google one, but I don't think anybody has done it. So we'll just leave it for now.
I think the tricky part is that like some cloud providers do implement mixed protocols already. It's just not well tested because the API server doesn't allow it. But like in theory, many implementations allow for port.
Is that, do we have a table of that somewhere? Is that in the KEP? I haven't looked at this one in a while.
No, but I can take an action item to try to find that out.
Okay, that would help. And if there's already a preponderance that support it, then we should let it move forward. And if it's just 1 or 2, then I don't mind letting it stall for a little longer. Okay, topology hints. Rob, are you here?
Yeah, I think that's on track. I was originally hoping to get that in beta in 122. That slipped to 123, so I had a small PR just to update the target milestone, but still working away on that. So yeah.
Okay. All right. And then stuff that wants to move into alpha is quite a long list. I saw that there's a GRPC PR. I wonder why this one. Oh, I guess we still go alpha, right? I saw there's a PR for this that's just making its way through CI bumps. Host IPs. Does anybody know what the status on this one is?
It's pending on reviews.
Okay. Probably a lot of these are on reviews. I know all ports is not going to make this cycle, if I remember. Dual stack APIs. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually cleaned up that KEP quite a bit, but it doesn't have the production readiness fully filled out. And also there are like 2 open questions that are in a separate section. So yeah, all that won't be resolved by next week. But that
Okay.
PR itself can be merged.
Sure, we can merge the PR, but it's not going to go in for an alpha, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Dual stack API server support, Dan Winship.
Yeah, I should probably take the work in progress off that, and people can start looking at it. So yeah, people should review that if they want. I have to figure out the exact details of the changes we're going to have to make to the API server code so that I can put that in the KEP. But I think that's all that was left to be written.
Okay. If you want me to look at it, make sure you assign it to me, because I will cycle through my assigned PRs more than ones that have been mentioned on. So happy.
Well, I want to comment something on this because we had a bug this week about this, and I thought that the Kubernetes.default was a mandatory for the endpoint slice name, but it seemed that it is not. So I think that's a good thing for this PR, because we are not tied to the name for the dual stack API server. We can create 2 endpoints.
Right. I saw that that test case come through. Okay. Multiple IPAM. I talked to Rahul already this week. Cluster IP and node port allocations. I don't suppose that we're going to try to get that
that is for Kubernetes 140.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, it's right around the corner. Kube proxy architectural stuff, that's not going for alpha unless there's something grave that I've missed. Load balancer behavior, this one that got merged and then rolled back. Anybody have an update on this?
The person that commented that he is not able to follow up, but he will take over. I don't know. One thing that this he find out, and I think that he has a PR up, is that we were mixing the load balance, the status ingress load balancer field in ingress and in services.
Yes. Oh, yeah, right. There's a PR open to copy that.
we need to decouple that, because
Yes.
he find out and he has the PR, but I think that we should do that work of decoupling.
Okay. I actually have that PR open in a tab that I forgot about. Okay. And then cluster network policy. I got pinged this week on it. Does anybody here wants to give a quick update on it?
Yeah, sure. There's actually a thing item later in the agenda to talk a little bit about some documents we've prepared, basically just down to coming to consensus over like the YAML architecture basically. And we need help from SIG Network for that. And then we can move forward with this KEP, but it's not going to happen for this release.
Okay. Okay. And Gateway API, that's async to everything else, right, Rob?
Yeah, that's not tied to this release cycle.
Okay. Cool. That's all of our KEPs. So let me then, let me stop my share. Where's that stop sharing? I'm going to add all the ones that we talked about today to the spreadsheet, the tracking spreadsheet. If you have a KEP that is either changing a life cycle stage or is net new that we want to get into 23, I need you to let me know. I believe that this dashboard has all the KEPs on it somewhere, except the one that was reopened, the CNI bandwidth. That one we did not talk about. I'll have to find that one. I believe that other than that, all of them are on this dashboard, which means there shouldn't be any surprises. But if there are, please let me know ASAP. So next on the agenda is, we talked about enhancement freeze. Antonio?
Yeah. So there was, during this last month, there were open several issues that are that are related. So people start to use services for different things. One is to create what is the name? I don't know the name. It's master slave deployment. So they create a service. They create one pod that is active, the other that's the slave, and they just use the readiness to remove from the endpoint and do the failover. The problem is that the contract keeps working and it doesn't, Proxy doesn't clean. So they are requesting Proxy to clean this contract entity, but we cannot do it because otherwise we break the graceful termination. And the other new wave of issues that people is opening is about protocols like SIG or FTP that needs this, they embed some information inside the TCP protocol with the UDP port, or one port needs another port, so they want affinity between the services port. And I think that this is a pattern of people of using services for more, let's say, stateful workloads. And I think that we don't have a solution right now. So people is coming up with their solutions, and what I see is the risk of we doing development based on this instead of solving the real problem. Is offering the people a solution and we guiding them to when you want to do this, you should use this feature or this other. And I was thinking Gateway API, or because services since, I don't know, a Pandora box now to add this feature.
So the affinity part is the same issue that we discussed a few weeks back or a few meetings back, right? It's is it based on port or is it based on IP or IP protocol? And it's, if I recall, there was really only one option in IPVS, but it wasn't clear whether it was actually behaving the way the doc said it's supposed to behave.
Yeah, but the thing is, the LARS did a good investigation on that, and the problem is you can offer only affinity if you receive the traffic in the same node, and that's not real. I mean, that's what I'm saying is, so we are offering half-baked solutions for. And the problem that I see is that this can grow, and because this is the problem that this person has now, and we are solving this particular problem in this particular moment. But I start to see a turn, and I start to see the turn is people coming from their legacy application that they want to keep their legacy applications, and they are applying the same principles. So what I'm trying to bring up here is if we can, think out of the box and say, well, this is the overall problem of the problems that these people is trying to solve, and we offer a good solution. Same as stateful sets, all those things, but in this case, it's for the network.
Okay. So I'm always open to a creative new approach that would try to solve this. The Affinity, the ECMP problem exists in some installations and not in others, right? So for a lot of the clouds, we can guarantee that affinity. For a lot of the on-prems, we cannot.
Yeah, but that's,
so you're right. It's a partial solution at best.
I mean, half of the people here is in cloud and other in bare metal, and the bare metal ones, we know the pain. I mean, this is going to break. It's somebody you tell that they are going to have affinity, they are not going to have it.
But isn't that already the case? Like they already have affinity. Even if we assert that affinity is based on the 5 tuple, we still can we guarantee it in the face of ECMP?
How do it's impossible to guarantee
that's what I mean. So
affinity.
So we already have this problem, right? Because we already have an affinity field.
And the only solution is to funnel traffic. So I thought that I mean, I don't remember Howard is the person from Istio. If you are able to funnel to a ingress or a gateway singleton,
right?
I mean, you have affinity there, and because what I see is that people is trying to use the service API as a load balancer API. They are programming their HA process with services. That's the thing that I'm seeing. And they want.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we say type equals load balancer, so it's not inappropriate for them to think of it as a load balancer.
Yeah, but we look at a lot of IP tables and the IPVS in services, so we cannot. I mean, we cannot have everything.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is how do you move forward now? This is not a problem now, but in 1 year it's going to be a problem. Because this is what I'm seeing is people is saying services is my HCI proxy, and I want all the features there. And we cannot offer that. Or we can deprecate Q proxy and replace it. I mean, I think that you went through this 5 years ago.
So is the question then, like, can we teach Gateway to be smarter? Or is the question like anybody have an idea?
Could we use the Keping potential to use different proxies for different services? Then you can do a specialized proxy that can handle these things, because it is possible. And then don't use Q-proxy for those particular services, but use a Keping-based extension proxy, if you like.
I was going more to modeling an API for this, right? It's one layer above that. It's say, you want to do this. Are you going to do this with services? So the question right now is, do we want to solve this with services or not? And do we have Gateway API or Ingress to help us here? Or that's my question now. Is service good enough or not?
But the Ingress relies on a service. You get traffic to the Ingress through a service. So I cannot see that it would help to have it on the ingresses.
And Gateway also layers on top of service, although there was some idle speculation of what if it didn't, or what if it had an option to not. I don't know if that was ever pursued.
I mean, we've seen with like the all ports KEP that, there are certain assumptions baked pretty strongly into core v1.service that, if you want to change them, it's, we're not going to be able to for API compatibility reasons. So using something other than service might make sense.
The thing is, there is only one solution. Network is you can program the network, but distributed network affinity, I mean, I seen that people trying that and fail, and I don't think that nobody's going to sell. So the only solution is to have a singleton, and that's what I'm saying is if we are able to move one layer up and funnel the traffic and have this, model control these new features as you want to have affinity per IP, all the load balancer features. Because at the end of the day, what people is doing is like an HA proxy.
So we already have is an annotation that lets you say proxy name or a field. I forget if it's a field or annotation, but we have a way to say like, don't run this through kube proxy, service proxy name. So maybe that gets to what Lars was suggesting of saying like this one runs through the special singleton proxy. Not everything does, but this one does.
I mean, what I want is to raise this, because if we are able to offer a solution, I was spending quite a time and I started to see all the Stack Overflow and all the people and all the and then I connected the dots, and people is starting to come up with their ideas, but they are suboptimal. They're
Sure.
going to fail. And the reality is that I spent some time on this and I couldn't say, well, we have this way of doing these things. We don't have.
Okay, well, I'm supportive of us trying to figure something out here. I'm tentatively supportive of an idea of, what if there was something other than service? Like that time may come, maybe it's this year, that we look at service and just say, we need not a version 2 in the Kubernetes API versioning sense, but like a newer abstraction that does better, and maybe Gateway is the right vehicle for that. It's a little early to be putting all the eggs in the Gateway basket, but it's the basket we've got.
Yeah, the problem is that services overloaded.
Yeah. Yes.
But
overloaded and organically grown. Sorry, Lars, go ahead.
Yeah, the gateways are basically a version of a user space kube proxy, in my opinion. Then
right.
You can do
well, there's no
the gateway. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the API itself is just a bunch of YAML. I think like the implementation, and we have to see, because there is L4 support right now, although we have to get some implementations to implement it to see how that shapes out. But like, which implementations map to what, that's actually fairly broad right now.
I was also wanted to gather the feelings of people, because we all work in different scenarios with different environments, and people can say, well, I'm not going to use Gateway API in 2 years, so it's not a solution for me. And that's fair. Or people can say, well, we are okay in trying to solve this in a different way.
Well, I'm cautiously enthusiastic about Gateway API as a way to fix some of the API mess around service, but still build on top of service. Like basically reduce the role that the service API fills by moving more of it up the API stack, but not necessarily up the implementation stack. But Affinity, at least in my mind, was one of those things that stays at the lower level, but maybe I'm not thinking big enough.
Yeah, but the problem is you can only solve it with a load balancer right now.
Sure, but first we have to model it somehow. We have to give users a way to express what it is they wanted. Right now, they don't have even that.
Exactly. Right? So my problem is that I went too far. So that's how do we model that? That was my question. I should open with that.
Okay. Well,
I'm gonna say another type.
Lars gets the last word.
Yeah, remember that one of these issues is about coordination between UDP and TCP. And
Yes.
As you know, I have been in favor for making this all ports cap and all IP cap. Regardless of protocol, everything goes to a pod. And I believe that would be required if some proxy of some kind should take care of both TCP and UDP.
Yeah.
So I would promote an all IP service instead of a pod range or all ports protocol specific thing.
I forget, Pavitra, is it all ports for a given protocol, or is it all ports for all protocols?
It's all protocols. It's essentially at IP level. That's the proposal.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And SIP was one of the use cases of people. So the LARS what Lars is mentioning, that is an ASI, is kind of SIP problem, you know, that they embed in TCP the connection to the port is one of the use cases for the all ports.
Right.
Okay. So let's take it to the mailing list, I think, and see if we can ideate more and figure out what the next steps are in terms of exploring either an API mockup or something that shows how it might look over time.
But the thing is simple: is you have a deployment with 2 FTP pods, and the traffic of the FTP server needs to go to the same pod, because the FTP server is going to announce the FTP port, the FTP data. So you need to solve this problem. That's the problem that people is asking us to solve. The other is the
so we have.
Yeah,
I feel like we understand the problem. What I would like to figure out is how does tell me the story of what happens with the pod and readiness, and how do we make a decision when to switch over to the other one and when do we not, right?
And that's the second problem, the database problem. You know, you have one active and the other passive, and what happens when it switches. So those are, I think that you nailed it. Those are the 2 problems people are asking us to solve. I will try to write it down and send the email.
All right. Next and last probably item on the agenda is cluster network policy. Show us.
Yeah, I didn't really want to go into it today. I spent some time working on this, but it's mostly from Abhishek and Sanjeev, Sanjeev's here, but Abhishek is on holiday today. We plan to present it, or at least give a quick run through of the various, YAML designs we're looking at in our next SIG Network meeting, but thought we should go ahead and give the stuff we've already made. That includes a slideshow and a document. The slideshow gives kind of an abbreviated version of what we're suggesting, and the document kind of goes in depth into 3 different possible YAML setups. So if we could get some review on that and looks at that before next SIG Network, I think it would help us, move through that presentation a bit easier.
But you don't want to show it now?
I wasn't planning on it, but we could talk about it a little bit if you'd like, or if everyone would like to see what we have. Kind of a little backstory here. We've been working on this for a long time. We've basically agreed on the use cases we want to proceed forward with, and there's 2 main ideologies for implementation in YAML. One is priority-based YAML, which a lot of CNIs already do. The other is non-explicit priority-based YAML. So lumping, kind of what we do with network policy, well, kind of lumping action and priority together. So we need help deciding on those 2 broad categories, and these documents are supposed to, present them both side by side and allow y'all to decide what is easier to use, what you'd like to see. I mean, I really don't have.
If you don't
too
want
much
to, I don't want to put you on the spot. So if you're not ready to talk to it, then that's fine. We can take it async. Just thought we had 15 minutes left. Maybe you'd want the slot, but if you don't, that's cool.
No, for sure. I feel bad about talking to it without Abhishek here as well, because he's had a huge hand in it.
He says he's here in the chat. He just can't talk.
Oh, sorry, Abhishek. I didn't realize that.
All right, just show us.
Okay, let's see what we got.
Jay saying what we're all thinking.
We can do it. Like I can cover Abhishek's portions as well, Andrew, or either one of us can if he can't talk.
Sounds good. Can I have host share permissions?
Oh yeah. If I don't really run these, let me figure out how to do that.
Yeah, no worries.
I
never know how to use Zoom. It's down at the, if you click on participants and then the little 3 dots.
Yes. Participants. Hold on, there we go. Where are you? More make co-host, that's fine.
There you go. What do you think, Sanjeev? Start with the slideshow or go into the docs?
We can do the slideshow and then we can occasionally jump back to the docs. We'll just give the overview today, right? So
yeah. I don't think we need to dive in. Okay, can you all see my screen?
By the way, I can talk now. I just swapped the number.
Yes.
To take care of my daughter. So
cool. Okay, yeah, so this is the PowerPoint I was talking about. On the first page, we've linked the Google Doc that goes with this PowerPoint. It goes a lot more into actual examples of the specs that we are considering here. Just for completeness, let me start by saying there is 3 different YAML specs we're offering. 2 of them are related to non-explicit priority. 1 is related to explicit priority. In the slideshow, we only talk about empower over deny over allow and the priority-based one. We don't kind of go into this middle compromise solution. So you'd have to check that out to see where you go. I think as a team, we've, the 2 extremes are A and C, and we kind of met in the middle at B and said we could all live with B. So if the team was having to decide about a YAML design today, we'd go with B. But anyway, moving back to the PowerPoint, we really just lay out the user stories here and some global assumptions. So some really important global assumptions we want to start with, obviously, is CMP is no longer going to focus on north-south traffic. So we're not including IP block in this. We are assuming that there needs to be another object that's going to act as, a moat around the cluster, whereas this is focusing more on the multi-tenancy use case and east-west controls. We also wanted to take a second to explicitly say what we're defining as a tenant. A tenant here can be 1 or more namespaces that are surrounded by a hard deny. And that CMPs are most often going to be used to enforce sort of a multi-tenancy boundary scenario. We also want to emphasize what we use the word delegate for. So this multi-tenancy scenario is a little different than like a normal one, solely because we already have an existing network policy object. So we have to have a special term that we use to talk about how CMP interacts with the existing network policy. And we use delegate for that. Delegate just means essentially that the CMP doesn't necessarily allow traffic, but it delegates action on that traffic to the network policy. So it's just something you should know. Anything else there to add, Sanjeev or Abhishek?
No, that's good. Some of the use cases we'll see that, in addition to enforcing tenant boundaries, it's also allowing for holds for system services and so on. And we'll see those details as we go.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, so these are kind of the use cases we've really tried to focus on, especially for these sample YAMLs. The first, I'd say, 2 are pretty self-explanatory, right? So we want to have if we want to have a strict deny on for all pods and all namespaces in a cluster to a specific namespace, we can do that. Same thing on the other side for strict allow. So those are pretty self-explanatory, I would say. Strict deny but allow exceptions. That's like if we want to implement multi-tenancy, implement tenancy, but be able to poke holes in those hard tenant boundaries to allow those tenants to talk to system namespaces such as kubedns, monitoring namespaces, et cetera, et cetera. And these will make more sense too with the associated figures as we scroll through here. The one use case that has caused a lot of confusion, I think, in general, is strict deny but delegation, and how that's different from a strict deny but allow. That's kind of why we highlight what delegate means here. When we say strict deny but delegate, we aren't necessarily allowing traffic, but we're saying we're going to let this traffic pass through and be dictated by the existing network policies. Excuse me. Are there any questions with that one? An example we give for that is basically if we have a service that's in a tenant, call it tenant bar, that we want to be globally accessible, but still be able to be turned on and off access to that via network policy. This is where a use case like this comes in. And there's diagrams like for that later on. So because of the strict deny but delegate use case, we also have the problem of default disposition, right? So that is when we create a tenant, we allow some traffic to be delegated, and then network policy doesn't ever do anything with that delegated traffic. What happens then? If we didn't define this, it would just fall through and be default allow. And I think a lot of users wouldn't necessarily want that. And that's what we've kind of come to. So we also look at what happens in those scenarios. Can we build the YAML so that we can toggle that default behavior on and off, et cetera, et cetera. So cluster external all or nothing for external traffic. That one, I don't think is a great really use case here. It's just going back to the assumption that we are not focusing on north-south traffic. Something else to think about with these sample YAMLs is the possibility for future extensibility. Again, we don't go too much into this one. It's just something to think about when reading the specs. Like we want to extend this, I don't think for the IP block selector, but for other features like logging, status field, et cetera, new types of selectors, et cetera. Number 8 is basically a combination of 1 through 5 and just looking at how those sample YAMLs look. You know, what looks more complicated for the various solutions proposed. So like I said, solutions considered, we have a non-explicit priority-based solution. Within that is 2 sub-tiers. One is where empower action is always over deny, which is always over allow. And the other is where empower is always over allow, which is always over deny. There's some important differences between those when you overload action and priority together. The priority YAMLs are a little more straightforward and are already, well, that's totally perspective. Sorry, I was checking. I'd say they're a little more explicit in that sense because your priority is always an explicit number.
One quick note is that it's not just the swapping of the allow and deny. That's the difference between those first two subcases. There's a little bit more to how empower is used, and that will become clearer later. So it's not just swapping allow and deny, which is the difference there. We should keep going.
Can you all hear me?
Your audio is back now.
Yep, back now.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, computer went through some struggles there. These are some notes on current vendor cluster network policies that are already implemented. Just put that there for completeness. I don't think we need to go into it right now. I think most of you know are working on one of these CNIs, so you kind of know the differences. This is somewhat of a comparison of non-explicit priority versus priority ordering. Again, I think you really have to look at the sample YAMLs before you go through these.
And there's a
Just my
table,
opinion.
there's a table in the other Google Doc which is a little bit more comprehensive.
Yep. Okay, so going down to the actual samples, we have some notes for priority-based samples specifically. Obviously, we have to make some assumptions in order for the priority system to work, specifically with how the priority numbering system works and how CMPs would be aggregated. Some of the main important things are how rule priorities are resolved. Basically, inter-CMP resolution is handled by the priority number. So the priorities can range from 0 to 1,000. And if you have the higher priority, your rule's winning. And then if you have multiple rules within a CMP, they are prioritized by YAML listing order within the CMP. One special thing to note here is that we have overloaded the priority value of 0 for it to mean that it's evaluated beneath existing network policy. Something else to note with that is we are going to explicitly define that you can only have one cluster network policy in a cluster with a priority of 0 because there's only one overloaded priority value. So that would be like if you want to set a default stance of the cluster. So instead of being, drop through to allow, it's a drop through to deny. And we'll show some examples of that later. Another thing to highlight, the action field for priority base can have 3 different values: allow, deny, or pass. Pretty similar to the other. Pass is pretty similar to the empower in the other solution. Basically, pass just means if traffic hits that rule, it's delegated to standard network policy. Now, the one thing we are going to have to add for priority-based samples is some more tooling into kubectl to kind of give the user an overall idea of the policy CMPs applied to their cluster, because it's not as easy to figure out policy aggregation. So those are some of the the initial things. I'm not going to go into each user story explicitly, I don't think, but as you can see, as we've moved through these, we have diagrams kind of illustrating every user story that should help clarify things if you do have any confusion. And like I said, here we have the YAMLs that fit neatly on a PowerPoint and the YAML examples that fit neatly on a PowerPoint. But if you want to see the complete set, you migrate over to the doc. Okay, we're almost at time. I think that's all I'm going to go through today.
Yep, I was just going to say you got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, so are there any questions about the doc and the YAMLs, the slideshow, what we're trying to do here? Basically, we've gotten to the point that if people feel strongly about how this YAML for CMP is going to look, like, now is your time to say it. If not, it's going to be left up to the decision of the smaller SIG Network Policy API subgroup. We want to hear what SIG Network thinks. We want to get this kept moving forward. We need your input. So we got to present a lot of it today. We can talk a little bit to it next meeting as well. But if we could get some reviews, comments, questions on this before then, that would be great.
It'd be also good if for next time we have some of the vendors. Sorry, I'm getting an echo. Get some feedback from the different CNR vendors.
Yep, and yeah, that's basically all I have. Feel free to comment on the slides and we'll respond to those, or reach out in SIG Network Policy API Slack channel.
And these are all linked in the agenda today.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's time. So much for having a thin meeting. thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll post the video as soon as it's ready. And if anybody wants to follow up on anything here, let me know. KEPs are my top priority for the next week. So if anybody has questions, hit me, let me know. Any last business?
No, but thanks for that demo, Andrew. It's cool that you guys have fleshed all that out.
No worries. The on-the-spot demos are your favorite, aren't they, Jay?
Yeah, I like that we made it. That's the part that I like.
Next time I'll be typing in front of you, and then I'll really be sweating. How about that? We'll do something live.
That's
some
right,
actual
yeah.
code instead of just YAMLs.
That was like, yeah. Nice
right.
one. Okay.
Thank you everybody for your time. Have a great afternoon, morning, whatever time it is for you.
All right. See you.
Thank you. Bye.